10 years ago, seems like forever, 10 years ago, when Senator Bernie Sanders was the most outstanding spokesperson in our Congress on economic and social and racial justice issues, on all these issues, nobody thought he could run for president. Nobody even considered the idea. It was rejected out of hand. Every media pundit, everybody said, oh, no, that cannot be. There was one character living out in western Massachusetts named Tim Carpenter. And Tim Carpenter said, I think we could get Bernie Sanders to run for president of the United States of America, and I think progressive Democrats of America could do a petition and convince him to make that run. And by God, they did it. And so what you need to understand today, at this moment, is that Senator Bernie Sanders, supporter of economic and social and racial justice, supporter of a new foreign policy that brings us peace in the Middle East and gets an end to the violence in Gaza, supporter of so many of the causes that matter to the people in this room, Senator Bernie Sanders is coming home. Please welcome the Senator from Vermont, Senator Bernie Sanders.
They have done, and as I think John indicated, when I was thinking about running for president way back when, actually there was no organization out there stronger in pushing me forward than PDA, so I want to thank you very much for that. And I brought this young lady up here because I want you to know that she is doing an extraordinary job in the Congresses. The most well-organized human being in the history of humanity. We started the Progressive Caucus in the House when I was elected in '91, and we had 5 members. Under Pramila, what do you got now, 100? Almost 100. That's the difference. That's the difference being a good organizer. I just want to say a few words and thank you all for your activism in many cases for many years. I think the great crisis facing our country is that we don't discuss the great crises facing our country. So just forcing discussion on certain issues is enormously important. And you know, John and I wrote a book which is actually a very good book, I must say so myself. And I've written several others, this one's better. And it's about Uber capitalism. And what it talks about is the fact that we have a very, very small number of people who have incredible wealth and incredible power in our country and in fact throughout the world. And I think it is not an understatement to say that in America today we are rapidly moving toward an oligarchic form of society. Now the problem is that we can't discuss that issue nationally because the people who own the media are part of the oligarchy. Many of the members in Congress and other elected officials get their money from the oligarchy, and it's just something that we don't talk about. But, you know, if you think back over the last number of decades, we as a nation have made good progress, significant progress in breaking down racial barriers. When I was a kid, I never thought we would have a black president in my lifetime. We made progress then. We made enormous progress in breaking down sexism in this country. Not so many years ago, we had in the United States Senate 100 people, 2 women who were senators. And I think no one doubts that within a few years, half the Senate will be, or more, will be women, half the House will be women. You can see. And those are the progress. And when I was a kid, I went to a very large high school in a small town called Brooklyn, New York. And I think we graduated with 1,700 kids. And I have zero doubt that there were kids in my class and in my school who were gay. But they never came out. They kept that in. And there's a revolution in that regard. So we as a nation, I think as a people, should be proud of all of those accomplishments in creating a much less bigoted society. Young people don't appreciate what that struggle was about. Racial justice. Last night I don't know if some of you were there, I was at an event with Jesse Jackson, who is a great American hero. Dr. King and all the rest who put their lives on the line to combat racism, and all those who fought for so long against sexism and homophobia, etc. But there is one issue not only where we are not gaining ground, we're losing ground, and that is the economic struggle. And that is an issue we don't talk about, and people feel uncomfortable talking about it. So women will get up and say, oh, we're going to control our own bodies. We all agree with that. African Americans will say we're not going to be discriminated against. We all agree with that. Gay people say no more discrimination, gay marriage, we're all for that. But out in the hinterland, you don't hear people say, I am a working class person. I'm working 60 or 70 hours a week and I'm going nowhere in a hurry. The likelihood is that my kids will be worse off than I am. And nowhere do you discuss, nowhere. Maybe God knows if I'm the only one or one or two others, here's a fact. You want to know why Trump has support all over this country from working class people? Over the last 50 years, despite a revolution in technology, right, 50 years. I was elected mayor of Burlington, Vermont in '81. We didn't have a computer, sure, let alone cell phones and printers and all that stuff. And you didn't have robots in factories. There's been a radical increase in worker productivity. Guess what? Today, the average American worker in inflation adjusted for income is earning less than he or she did 50 years ago. Have you ever heard that discussion on television? Right. So you want to know why people are angry. They have a right to be angry. They've seen their jobs go to countries where workers are paid a fraction of their wages. When they try to form a union, companies come in and fire workers, break the law. And they want to raise the minimum wage. You got all these organizations telling us we can't raise the minimum wage, which remains, as you all know, abysmally in Washington, $7.25 an hour. Okay? People all over this country can't afford health care. 60,000 Americans die every year because they don't get to a doctor when they should. We pay the highest prices in the world for prescription drugs, sometimes 10 times more than people in other countries. I took years ago in Vermont, I took people from the northern part of Vermont into Montreal. They bought tamoxifen, which is a breast cancer drug, for 1/10 of the price. And just a few years ago, when I was running for president, we went from Detroit to Windsor, Ontario, about an hour drive, for insulin, 1/10 the price. Pay the highest prices in the world. Got a healthcare system that is failing. Pay the highest prices in the world for prescription drugs. We got real wages for workers lower today than it was 50 years ago. We have more income and wealth inequality today in America than we have ever had. You all know that? Not discussed. No one talks about it. You got 3 people on top owning more wealth than the bottom half of American society. And the corporate media and the political system hasn't told us that we're allowed to be outraged by that inequality. We can be outraged if some police officer shoots somebody. That's an outrage. We can be outraged if some woman doesn't get a job because of her gender. We can be outraged. But we cannot be outraged by the fact that tens and tens of millions of Americans in the richest country in the history of the world are living paycheck to paycheck. 60% of our people in the richest country in the history of the world living paycheck to paycheck. You're not allowed. That is not allowed. Outrage is not allowed. The media has told us we're allowed to be outraged by that. So that's what our struggle is. And it's a big struggle. Because you're taking on the corporate class and their greed. You're taking on the oligarchy. You're taking on the corporate media. You're taking on the Democratic establishment. You're taking on the Republican establishment. Other than that, it's really quite easy. Now the good news, after my wife always said I should hand out Prozac after my speeches, all right? So I cheer people up, fill them with hope and optimism. But the good news is that what we are seeing now is a rebirth and a revitalization of the trade union movement in America, which is a big deal. One of the memories that I will carry with me for a long time is seeing Sean Fain of the UAW walk into a negotiating session with GM with a t-shirt that says, "Eat the rich." But it's not just Sean. We're seeing revitalization. The Teamsters getting a good contract. We're seeing young people at Starbucks all over the country. We're seeing people on college campuses organizing, and they're organizing, really on a class basis. They're prepared to take on, big money interest and go forward. So, to my mind, where we are at this moment politically, obviously, is Trump has got to be defeated. I trust I do not have to spend a lot of time on that issue in this audience. And I don't. I mean, you all know that, so it's, but Trump is a different ball of wax. And what he has done is not just taken over and transformed the Republican Party. I don't think George W. Bush was invited to their convention to give a major speech, and that's not that party anymore. That used to be the party of the corporate elite and the billionaire class, and they've changed that. But what Trump has also done, which is incredibly dangerous, is not even that he lies all the time, is he lies in such a preposterous way that you can't even keep up with it. I mean, it takes a certain chutzpah, it does, to tell the American people who watch on live stream with their own eyes thousands of people coming out to a Kamala Harris rally. Probably every major network was there covering the event. Hundreds of reporters were there reporting on the event, and Donald Trump says nobody was there. All right. And the level of that insanity is really quite mind-blowing. But I'll tell you what the danger of it is. We can laugh, and it is absurdly funny. But here's the danger. The danger is if you can convince some Americans, not most, that an event in which 10, 15,000 people came out never happened, that it was all artificial intelligence, it was all a myth. Trust me, in a close election in Wisconsin or Michigan, you can convince those people that it was rigged and fraudulent, right? That's the danger. So I think he lays the groundwork by trying to destroy every institution in America. To say nothing is true. And the only truth that exists in America is from the words and the mouth of Donald Trump. And needless to say, that is what fascism is about. That's pretty dangerous stuff. So, and this is a whole level. George W. Bush was a conservative Republican, not a fascist. Okay? And so we're into a new realm, and we've got to figure out, how we deal with it. But I think immediately where we have got to be, it goes without saying that we have got to do everything that we can to defeat Trump and elect Kamala and Tim Walz. But we also have to understand that once they are elected, we need to continue our efforts to build and strengthen the progressive movement. Because I will not tell anybody in this room, you will not be shocked to know that both political parties are significantly controlled by big money interests, right? You all know that. It's no great secret. And, our job, we did a poll recently, just that I'm going to close and sit down and chat with John. But a couple of weeks ago, my campaign paid for a poll, not to talk about individuals, but to talk about issues. So we asked the American people questions like, should we expand Social Security benefits by lifting the cap on taxable income? All right, which is now at $165,000. Lift that cap, you have millionaires starting to pay their fair share. We can raise Social Security benefits by $2,400 a year and extend the life of Social Security for 75 years. So we asked the American people, do you think that's a good idea? Over 70%, including a good majority of Republicans, said yes. I can't get that bill onto the floor of a democratically controlled Senate. We asked the American people, should we expand Medicare to include dental, hearing, and vision? Because a lot of seniors can't afford to go to a dentist. Overwhelmingly, over 70%, including a majority of Republicans, said, yes, we should. Not on the agenda. Too radical for them. Only 70% of the people support it. Because, why? Because the moneyed interests do not support it. Okay? We asked the people, should we raise taxes on the rich? Overwhelming support. Again, majority Republicans. So, and it went on down the line. Should we raise the minimum wage to a living wage? Very strong support, including Republicans. So what has happened over the last many years, for a million reasons, but always, what was that movie, Follow the Money? You remember that movie? Follow the Money. So for a lot of reasons, things happen, but it always comes back to money. And the people on top now, simple reality, have never ever had it so good. Never. In the history of this country, the top 1% have never ever had it so good. They like the status quo. They have significant control over both political parties. They own the media. They control the economy with more concentration of ownership than we have ever seen. So we got a lot of work to do to change that. But the good news is that, what our poll showed, the support that the UAW got for their strike showed, the American people want us to take on the greed of the oligarchy. They do. So, with that, let me once again thank all of you. I know many of you have been in the struggle for years. And, we're winning some good battles, we're losing some battles, but the struggle continues. What we are struggling for, understand that in one form or another, people have been struggling for hundreds and hundreds of years. So let's continue the struggle. Thank you all very much for listening.
Make some more noise, Chicago! Make some noise, Chicago! Also make some noise for John Nichols, everybody. From the nation, make some noise for John Nichols.